Hello, good people. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Make America Think Again with Shauna Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I hope everyone is having a wonderful weekend. Down below, you have the correct spelling of my name, you have my IG information, and you have my Cash App. So if you'd like to bless the channel. We would greatly appreciate it here at Make America Think Again. Also, another part of housekeeping and very important part of housekeeping is for you to subscribe to the page. Please like and share and comment on any episodes that just really speak to you. But most importantly, I need you to subscribe to the page. I'm seeing that more people are coming to the page than are actually subscribed to the page in the analytics. So let's make sure we are subscribed to the page, please. Okay, please and thank you. All right, today's topic, one of the hot topics for this week, is what's happening with the Republican Party. Actually, it's what's happening with the Democratic Party, but that's setting the hair on fire of the Republican Party and sending them into yet another fear-mongering tizzy. Okay, I have renamed them the party of fear-mongering because that's all they do. That's literally all they do. This is being stolen from you. This is being taken from you. This is who's going to come and grape and pillage. This is who's going to do this. Fear, fear, fear. That's all they do. Okay. And this is just not me. AOC came and said the same thing this week, but I was literally a couple of days before that, I posted the same thing. It's like, it's always a fear-mongering situation with them. And let's talk about where it was coming from this week and the whole communism of it. Okay, so this week we saw in New York three Democratic socialists who were handpicked or endorsed by Mamdani, and they won. They won up against millions of AIPAC money, against millions of Republican dollars. They won in the face of that. And so now you not only have Republicans that are running scared or, feeling some type of way, but you also have establishment Democrats who are feeling some type of way too. Yeah. And you know what? As a progressive, I would like to say out there to all those establishment and corporate Democrats, you were just put on notice this week. That's what happened in New York. You were put on notice. We are not down with the bullshit anymore. We're not we're not going to vote for people who are taking AIPAC money. We're not going to vote for people who cannot verbally speak out against genocide. We're not doing it anymore. We're not doing it. We're not getting on board with that. And that has these corporate and establishment Dems running scared, and Republicans, their hair is on fire. I'm going to tell you why it's important to Republicans. But let's first of all, let me stop because I know there's going to be somebody, just like it's already happened. It's already happened. So you all have received your talking points. All my MAGA folks out there, all the Republicans out there have received their talking points. And so you're going to see communism all over the place, but they don't even know the definition of communism. They don't even know the difference between communism and socialism. So let's break that down first. Okay, so a simple Google that anybody could do, but because I know you won't do it and you will come to my page with some bullshit comments, I'm going to do it for you. Communism is a political and economic ideology that advocates for the elimination, keyword, elimination means getting rid of, for those of you who don't know, of private property and a profit-based economy. So that is capitalism, okay? Instead, it promotes public ownership of all resources, public ownership of all, another keyword I want you to hold on to, resources and the means of production with wealth distributed amongst citizens based on individual need. Okay? So now in hearing that definition, Number one, Mamdani and those three Democratic Socialists who were just elected did not say anything about eliminating anyone's private property. I am going to tell you what Mamdani is working on in New York, but it's not the elimination of individuals' private property. And this is another scare tactic that Republicans are going to try to use when they do all this communism talk. Okay. And you can't, dear MAGA folks, dear I can't say his name, triple felon folks, you cannot allow yourselves to be fear-mongered yet again. You keep falling for the okie doke. Stop that bullshit. Okay. So the elimination of private property, no one has called for that. And a profit-based economy. Okay. So what does that speak to? Not the elimination of capitalism, because you couldn't totally do that in this country, because this country is based on capitalism. Let's just be very honest. But Democratic Socialists have called for more of a distribution of the wealth, meaning they have called for higher taxes for people who are in that higher 1% echelon. Not you, middle class, not you, working class. You don't have enough money for that. They're talking about the top 1%. Not only, first of all, we got to make them pay their taxes, because when the felon came in, he made it very convenient for them to, get away with not paying taxes, especially corporations. But not only paying their taxes, but paying a little extra because you make an absorbent amount of money. Again, this would not include you, working class, farmer, factory worker, middle class, teacher, electrician, auto mechanic, engineer. This is not including middle class or working class. But here's the thing that they like to do. They like to throw these buzzwords at you and these things that you are supposed to be fearful of to get us to go against each other, because as long as we're doing this, we're not watching what's happening over here. We're not watching them pick our pockets and steal our tax dollars every day, because we're over here fighting with one another. We're over here, oh, this person needs to get out. This person needs to leave. This person isn't doing this. This person isn't doing that. This person's taking over this. This person's taking that away from me. And while you're doing this, they're doing this. They're grabbing and they're taking and they're stealing. Okay? So I need you to understand that. So the profit-based economy, you cannot totally eliminate that in this country without just crashing the country, because we're based on capitalism. But they are calling for more of a distribution of wealth. That's a difference between communism and socialism. Another difference is the elimination of private property. Nobody's calling for that. Okay? All right, so moving on. It promotes public ownership of all resources. No. Of all resources? No. That has not been anything that you have seen or that Mamdani campaigned on or that he's trying to do in New York. And the means of production, the only thing I can say to this is that he has been putting a real emphasis on labor unions, okay, which corporations don't like, because labor unions push back on corporations when they aren't allowing for getting paid for overtime, or they aren't paying sick leave, maternity leave, paternity leave, or they aren't, just doing right by their workers. So democratic socialism is in favor of where's the line? Where's the line? Public ownership of resources, no, but the means of production going through labor unions. So the workers are protected, with wealth distributed among citizens based on individual needs. Now, again, democratic socialists are not talking about taking all the money away from the top 1%. And that shit would never happen. They're just saying, hey, pay your fair share. Just like Bernie has always been saying, pay your fair share. Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, etc. It's not just Mamdani. This is not new. There have been other Congress people who have talked about and tried to push this along for years now. And here's what happens. You start the ball rolling, right? You get the ideas out there, and eventually it's going to happen. It might be 10 years down the road. It might be 15 years down the road. Hell, Bernie might not even be with us anymore before what he was trying to implement, we finally see come to full fruition. But he started the ball rolling, and now we have Mamdani in New York that's actually implementing the same things that Bernie Sanders have been talking about, Elizabeth Warren have been talking about. All right, so now let's talk about socialism, because I want us to be clear, and I want you to listen for the differences, people. Socialism is an economic and political philosophy centered on the idea that the community, the people, rather than private individuals and corporations, private individuals, that top 1%, and corporations should collectively own and manage the means of production. Okay? Meaning that socialism does not believe that everything should be owned and overseen by the top 1% in corporations. Okay? So are you seeing who might be the real culprits behind the pushing of this communism narrative? Are you seeing that? Okay, hang on, I'm not finished. The goal is to reduce wealth inequality. Reduce the inequality, not take everything away from. It is to reduce the inequality. So instead of the gap being like this, here, we reduce the gap here. You're still going to have the top 1%. You're still going to have working class here. But instead of the 1% being way up here, they're here. I know my hands are big, so maybe I shouldn't put them in the frame. But I need to illustrate that for you. Okay, so to reduce that wealth gap, that inequality, and prioritize putting people, human needs over private profit. So putting human needs over capitalism. So putting your needs over capitalism, over corporations, over what the top 1% wants. And you literally have people out here whom I suspect to be from probably the middle class or working class complaining and actually perpetuating this narrative of communism when democratic socialists work for you. Work for you. It puts the people first. So this is what I'm saying. When y'all get in my comments, you need to know what you're talking about. Just don't get in here regurgitating talking points. Look up this information for yourselves, because you're literally going against your own interest again. Yet again. So let's talk a little more about, now who would have a problem? Now that I've given you those two definitions, who would have a problem with the three democratic socialists that won in New York? And who would have a problem with that trend continuing across America? Number one, corporations, because you just heard that they would put people before corporations, right? You just heard that they would prefer, or they would put labor unions and make sure that labor unions are in place in regards to corporations, which would cut into the corporation's profit. So they're not going to like that. And who owns the corporations? The top 1%. So the top 1% are those that are having a problem with democratic socialists being elected. So you have capitalism, corporations, top 1%, are going to have a problem with it. And who else do you think will have a problem with it? AIPAC, Israel, Zios, possibly? Think about it. If you have democratic socialists out there saying, hey, let's put the people first. Let's make sure corporations can't buy up all of these properties, because when they buy up all the properties, it drives the cost up. And now you have all these unhoused people, people who cannot afford to live, to rent in these properties. So let's take them out of it. Let's take money out of politics. Let's remove the money from, you see how I won? I won without the millions of dollars. They don't want you to see that. They want anybody who runs for office to think, oh, I gotta take this AIPAC money. I've gotta get locked in with all these lobbyists, or else I won't win. And these three candidates just proved, and Mamdani just proved that that does not happen. And they don't want you to see that. They don't want you to know that. And then again, this whole narrative of we got to send all this money to Israel because, you know, they're our greatest allies, and we got to take care of them, and we got to join them in every war and genocide they try to execute. They want to keep that narrative going. They don't want you to hear the people who will say with a full chest, this is a genocide. And when they don't want you to see that. The Zios and those that really support this whole Israel first bullshit, they don't want you to hear that, and they don't want you to see that. And so that's why they have you out there carrying their water and talking communism, and when you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about, when you are literally going against your own interests. So now let's talk directly about some things that, and then also don't forget the corporate Dems and the establishment Dems. They are used to taking that AIPAC money as well. So that they have a problem with the Democratic Socialists as well. It's not just Republicans. Okay, keep that in mind. So let's talk about some of the things that Mamdani had promised on the campaign trail, right? And that he's accomplished, or that he's still working on. And I want you to just judge for yourself. Is this something that you would be in favor of happening in your city, your town, your state, your county? Just think for yourself. If you had somebody come along, whether this is the mayor, city council, governor, that is really for these types of programs, would you welcome it? Is it something that you need? Just listen to the programs, take the names out of it. Just listen to what he's implementing, okay? So he just recently was able to get this passed through city council in New York, a rent freeze for 2 years. Now that does not mean that these people aren't going to have to pay rent. It does not mean that. That's what all these people out here pushing this communism narrative want you to believe, but that is not the case. What that means is there's a cap. So what you're paying now, you will pay for the next 2 years. The landlords, the corporate landlords, specifically, corporate landlords cannot increase your rent for 2 years. So that gives people the opportunity to kind of catch up with the economy, to save a little money, etc. Okay, so think about this. Would you want this for you, or to happen in your city, your state, your town, etc.? Okay, a rent freeze for 2 years. He just got that passed. That's rent control. Universal pre-K for 2-year-olds, meaning free pre-K for 2-year-olds. And so they're starting the program with 2-year-olds, and I believe it's supposed to expand up to 4-year-olds over the next 2 years, but they're starting with 2-year-olds, and I think up to 1,000 3-year-olds. They're starting this program. So these are parents who will be able to go to work and not have to worry about the cost of paying for childcare. Could you benefit from that? I know I could have. I couldn't wait till my daughter turned 5 and could go to kindergarten to go to public school so I could stop paying for it. It was ridiculous then. I don't even know what y'all are paying right now. Okay, so moving right along. Public grocery stores, city-owned grocery stores, where either the person, the people who come into the grocery stores, they're paying either a very low fee for the groceries, or maybe none. Maybe they're able to use their government assistance to get everything, and they're free. I don't know exactly how the city public grocery stores work, but I do know it's going to lower the cost for folks. And right now, everyone could use a public grocery store because these grocery prices are ridiculous. And I've heard some information from different states. I can't remember what state. I think this guy was in Minneapolis, and he was talking about the cost of food and groceries and toilet paper and things like that. And I was like, damn, that's higher than California. When did that happen? So y'all got to pay attention to this. I don't know what they're doing to y'all in the Midwest. They did the same thing before the election, by the way. I was seeing a lot of social media people posting videos about how much they were paying for steak and eggs and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, for a minute we did pay higher for eggs, but everything didn't go crazy. So there's something happening that they do in the Midwest that they're not doing on the East and West Coast. And y'all thinking it's so expensive. It is expensive. Housing is expensive. Cost of living over, just across the board is more expensive. But there are a lot of different things that I'm hearing come out of the Midwest where I'm like, well, our steaks aren't that much. I thought California would be more expensive than Milwaukee or Minneapolis or Detroit or wherever it is. So I don't know. There's some funny business going on in the Midwest. Y'all might want to look into that. He's pushing for free buses. Now, this is getting blocked by the governor, Kathy Hochul, but he is pushing for free buses. Wouldn't that help some folks out if you didn't have to pay the bus fare? Affordable housing. Okay, so affordable housing wants to construct 200,000 affordable new units of housing. He's already broken ground on the first one. So 200,000 properties that are going to be, I don't want to say low income housing, but that's going to help get some people that are unhoused into properties. That's going to get the person who can't afford the median price of a home, they'll be able to get into those homes. Would that not help you in your county, in your state, in your city? Street safety upgrade. He's already done this. He did this the first week. They went and worked on some roads. He was even out there with the people working on some roads. He did some things to widen the pedestrian areas and also make more biking areas because people were getting hit by vehicles, by cars. And so he's already done that in the city of New York. That keeps people safe. That keeps people from being unalive. That helps with transportation. Wouldn't you want that in your city, in your town, in your state? He banned ICE in city buildings, city spaces, and they cannot be in those spaces without a warrant. So that prevents them from going to courthouses and arresting folks that are trying to go through immigration the right way, as y'all always like to say. And then they were arresting them as soon as they come out of the courthouse. He banned that shit. You can't do that shit without a warrant. He cracked down on bad landlords that went with the rental piece. He passed laws to protect delivery workers. He's working on a $30 minimum wage by 2030. So this gradual increase in the minimum wage. He's working to make New York a sanctuary city for the LGBTQI community. Now this millionaire tax is being blocked by the governor, again, increasing the taxes for the millionaires and billionaires so they can take that money and put into all these other programs. He suspended a tax lien sale on properties. So what would happen is the taxes would get so high on the properties that the individuals who owned the property could not pay the taxes, and then they were getting foreclosed. And guess who came in and scooped up those properties? Corporations. Corporations. So he blocked out the corporations for coming to buy out those, pay those tax liens off real quickly so the people could maintain their properties. Again, working for the individuals, working for the people. I'm trying to see here if I had anything else. Yeah, the property plan over a 10-year period of time. So all these programs are centered around improving life for the people. That's the difference between socialism and communism. No one's trying to take everything from the wealthy 1%. And also, I don't understand why so many working class people are that concerned about the 1%. They aren't hurting for anything. They're just buying new yachts, buying more property in Italy and Greece and in Argentina. They aren't worried about you. So why are you worried about them and their money? I don't get it. I don't get it. So y'all out here fighting and going back and forth and dropping in my comments bullshit about communism. Number one, define communism. Define it. Break it down and define it for yourself. And then compare that to socialism. Look that up, Google it, and define it and break it down for yourself. And then compare the two. And which one is working in your favor? That's what you should be fighting for, not these bullshit talking points that you hear coming from the top, because their agenda is not about you. It's not about the people. It's not. They are fear mongering you. So they keep you fighting. They keep us fighting while they're over here picking our pockets and stealing our money and going after Social Security and taking away your health care. All this that you should be focused on over here, but they want you fighting here. They want you in my comments posting some bullshit.